Welcome to the Next Level Human podcast. As a human, you have a job to do. In fact, you have 4 jobs: to earn and manage money, to attain and maintain health and fitness, to build and sustain personal relationships, to find meaning and make a difference. None of these jobs are taught in school, and that is what this podcast is designed to do: to educate us all on living our most fulfilled lives through the mastery of these 4 jobs. I'm your host, Dr. Jade, Teta, and I believe we are here living this life for 3 reasons, and 3 reasons only: to learn, to teach, and to love. In this podcast, I will be learning, teaching, and loving right along with you. I'm grateful to have your company. Here's to our next level. Welcome to the show, everybody. I have actually 2 of, we have some history now, me and Erin and Laura. So I'm here with Erin Power and Laura Rupsis. These are 2 friends of mine who I've gotten close to over the years in this space. And one of the reasons I wanted to have them on the show is that they deal in the life coaching, health coaching industry. And we would call it health coaching. And we're going to, and I think a lot of people who are listening to this might go, well, aren't those the same things? They're actually not. And I have the 2 experts here to sort of have this discussion. And let me just frame this up really quickly. Why have this discussion now with Erin and Laura? This is a field that is growing by leaps and bounds. It is also a field, and this will really be the first question to you both, Erin and Laura. It's also a field that when you go and look at the statistics, there's something like 85% of people who go through coaching programs and don't seem to be making great money at it, and or don't feel like they're qualified to coach. And so here's an industry that has a huge flood of people coming into it and wanting to be in this space. And yet the industry doesn't seem to be as a whole at a place that is really helping people get the knowledge they need to do great work and helping them make a living at it. Now, obviously, I'm having you 2 on because you 2 do this a whole different way. And your coaching program that you all run is fantastic and is something that I want to talk to you about. And so I'll let you maybe start just wherever the 2 of you want to start, either starting where addressing this big discrepancy between people coming in and not getting the results. And also, I want to make sure that you weave in a little bit about the story of how you got coaching and the coaching program that you do and all of that kind of stuff. But I'll let either one of you start wherever you want. And I'm just looking forward to having this conversation.
All right, I'll go first here because I'm going to tee up Erin here a little bit in a second. So Erin and I both started coaching completely separately, up like various ends of the world. Erin's in Calgary, Canada. I was in Illinois. I escaped. I'm now in Florida. But she and I both started coaching independently of each other and then met when we joined our school, the Primal Health Coach Institute. Our institute has evolved since we started. I came in as essentially admissions. So it's my job to talk to people exactly about what health coaching is and what it isn't, and try to help them determine whether this is actually the path they want. Is what they're envisioning what they're going to get by following this path? I'm also trying to determine if they're a good fit for our program and help them understand the landscape and the options that are available to them. And what you just sort of teed up in terms of how many people are actually successful, how much money health coaches are really making, what the opportunities are right now, I talk about every single day. So it's forefront of mind, mostly because there are so many people interested in going into this realm. They're just trying to figure out if it's legit. Oh my gosh, it's growing. Or is this, and is this legit? Or is this just the next hot thing? Right? And it's absolutely legit. And I'll talk about that and where I see proof of that. But, I started as a health coach. I struggled like everybody else did the first few years. The number one reason why people aren't making any money is because they give up too soon. Erin and I say that all the time. It's going to take you 3 years, folks. Unless you're going to go out and get a job, which is a thing now, it's going to take you about 3 years to earn a full-time income. So go into it being prepared for that. we want people to go in prepared for, I guess, what's on the other end, but most importantly, the not just the monetary investment. That there's a return on investment here. That's a great story that we can talk about, but not just the monetary investment, but the time and the effort that goes into building something of value, both to you and someone else. So my role, again, is admissions director. Erin and I host our podcast together. I'll do some webinars at our school, but Erin is our coaching and curriculum director, and she spends a lot of time building our programs and coaching other people in our master coach course to really make them phenomenal coaches. And a lot of what people learn when they go through that course with her is some of what they've been doing, thinking they're coaching, but they're not actually coaching. So I'll let Erin that's what I meant by hopefully tear you up a little bit, Erin, kind of your role.
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing, Erin, from the expert here that does the curriculum behind this. I'm really interested to hear like what is different about this and why are so many people failing at coaching?
Yeah, I'm so interested and intrigued by this statistic that you shared, because I had heard that before, that 85% number. And I know we don't have this literature on our fingertips here, but
and who knows if it's accurate to your point, right? We don't know, because some of these things I actually don't know where that came from either. That's what I've heard. So who knows?
I know, right? But part of me, I want to know more. This is the curiosity of the coach mindset. I want to know more. I want to get into the weeds of that. Like, who are these people? How long did they try? How hard did they try? You know, if it's like 85% aren't making a living, aren't making a suitable wage, and then bailing. Well, what did they do? What were they doing? What were they trying? How were they going to business for themselves? Did they know what they were doing? Was there any confidence or clarity in what they were trying to do? Right? This is how I coach with my clients, like with my health coaching clients. And I think there's such a strong parallel here. When I'm coaching my health coaching clients who have a very specific kind of health change they're trying to make, I'm barely talking about food. I'm barely talking about exercise. I'm talking about the granularities of their schedule, what they did, what they were thinking, what they were feeling, why that was important to them. That's coaching. And I think this goes back to Laura's point, which is I don't think there's a lot of clarity in people entering the marketplace as to what coaching is. So they think they're going to become like sort of like a macro prescriber, or I don't know, meal plans or something. And that's not what the industry needs. That's not what the health consumers need. Nobody needs that anymore. Like nobody needs that. It's not helping anybody. So nobody really these health coaches don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Well, who am I? And I think the industry has struggled to clearly identify what a health coach is. We double down on it in our school. Like Laura and I have been we're pretty OG in the health coaching education space, which this thing has exponentially skyrocketed. I mean, just how many hundreds of schools now certifying coaches, but back in the day, there wasn't that many. And we've been very consistent in our message. We want you to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, what you're not doing, what is in the coach realm, what is not in the coach realm. As the curriculum director, specifically this master coach course that Laura speaks to, which is our advanced coaching course, it's our coaching course. It's the course that really doubles down on the art and science of coaching. There's so much deprogramming that has to be done, because people think they're going to come in and start prescribing food plans. And it's like, that's not what your clients need. They need something else. They need to get to connect to values, vision, into the weeds of their day and their likes and dislikes and their triggers and their behaviors. And it's way more fun. It's a lot more work than just dispensing meal plans and macros. And I think that's probably where we see that drop off. This 85% of people who don't follow through, it's because their expectations were mismatched from what the industry actually needs and what health coaching actually is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Before we came on, just to get at all of you who are listening up to speed, before we came on, I was talking about this idea that people use terms like, inclusive and integrative and holistic all the time in this space. And they're decidedly not from my point of view. And part of that is because those terms really are about the individual. You have to meet the individual sort of where they are. And a lot of these coaching programs, and I'm phrasing this is I'm making it a statement, but it's really a question to both of you. So feel free to answer. But a lot of these coaching programs in my mind are essentially doing prescription-based and or tool-based sort of coaching. And from my perspective, this is a process-based thing that has to meet the individual where they are. And Erin was alluding to this idea that you're not really doing coaching, in my mind, until you really understand the person, what is the stories that they are living from, the values that they are living from, the environment that surrounds them, the objections that they have, and then designing something that is uniquely suited for them, but then also guided by them. And this is the other aspect of coaching, right? You can design something all you want, but it's just a starting place when I think of something where the process is then driven by the individual. And this is a question again, and you got either one, you can take it, but I don't see that happening in the coaching industry. It's not process driven, it's prescription driven, it's not individual driven, it's coach driven. And I think that's a big problem. And so there's my question phrased as a statement. What do you all think of that?
Right, Erin? Like
Just a lot of-
like Erin's like how much do we pound the table that coaching is a client driven process? It is a bottoms up process, not a top down process. There's nothing wrong with a group program. I run them, Erin's run them, lots of people do them. We can add some coaching like content and feel to a group coaching program, but it's still kind of top down and it's still kind of product driven, coach driven. Here's what's coach has designed for you versus what really works, which is this individual, again, holistic bottoms up approach. I'm sorry, my clients kind of know what to eat. They know what to eat, right? They don't really need me to tell them. What they need help with is understanding how they navigate the complex social situation when they go out to dinner and they're trying to enjoy themselves around friends that are snarfing down jalapeno poppers and pizza, right? They need to understand how to organize their day so that they can move more because they don't, quote unquote, like exercise. It's about being able to drill down to the actual individuals and what their true barriers are. And then we can pepper in information and use tools to help make that process easier. But the tool is not coaching. The coaching is what you do around the tools to help create a more sort of holistic, integrative pattern. Because first of all, health is more than just food. Health is more than just exercise and activity. It's everything. And it's also interwoven. And you got to kind of figure out from each individual, where are they going to get the biggest win first to keep them motivated and keep them moving forward. But at the same time, marry that with what they're capable of doing at any one time. So it's far more complicated. And I think the reason so many health coaches fail because they realize kind of how hard that is. The impression is that it's hard to scale. And maybe that's something that we can kind of talk about, because if you're doing things one-on-one, you kind of have to charge a pretty penny in order to really make it a full-time income. But there are ways around that through a bunch of other things we can talk about later. But, it's starting any business is not easy. The good news is there's jobs out there now too that really didn't exist before. And if you just decide, look, entrepreneurial path is not for me yet, because I don't know enough, I don't have the confidence. I think once you get out and you really start working for someone else and you realize how much money you're leaving on the table by working for someone else, then you have the confidence to go out and kind of start your own business.
Yeah. And actually, one thing I'll add to this, because I want to get your take on this too, Erin, but one thing maybe I'll just throw in the mix for you also to consider is for the coaches who think that it really is about macro counting and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know how much you all have been playing with AI, but since we've had this deluge of AI, I've been playing with it and getting very good at it. And from my perspective, AI can do all this stuff and will be doing all this stuff. And another company is going to come along and your AI is going to be doing macro counting far better than you. And so if those are the tools you are using and you're a tool-based coach, I'm a little bit afraid for you if you don't have the technology and the understanding of what, Laura and Erin are teaching with the Primal Health Coach Institute, because what's going to happen is these tools are going to be ubiquitous. They're going to be everywhere. And people are going to be looking for something more in depth. And the people who are just tool-based coaches are going to be left out in the cold from my perspective. So that's just one thing to add to you, Erin, as maybe you want to throw something onto that and just key off those points.
Yeah, I mean, the AI thing is so interesting because it's such a clear example of the information implementation gap, because information is going to be even more accessible. But what the anybody who's out there trying to like get us to all sort of calm down, because people who are worried about AI, the people who are trying to get us to calm down about AI are saying, yeah, but it doesn't. The AI robots can give you the information, but only you can implement whatever you learn, whatever Chat GPT spits out at you. One thing that I think is interesting, Laura kind of touched on this idea that health is more than food and exercise, and this idea of health. First of all, nobody's shopping for that. No one's shopping for health, but health coaching, in my opinion, and I think we probably would agree on some level, but I'm curious, the health coaching business, the business of health coaching, the vocation of health coaching is more than just health as well. It's more than just coaching. It's more than, it's got a lot of inter sort of woven parts. And one of them is, what is this practice I'm going to build? So I'm going to become a health coach and I'm going to build a specific kind of proprietary practice in some area of specialty that I'm really interested in, that I speak that language very exclusively, which attracts the right people to come into my fold. Now I have clients, specific types of clients. So I think we do need a program or a point of view. So we can't go to market and create a successful health coaching business or industry if we're all just out there doing health coaching. Like, health coaching is not something people are looking for. Even if we try to get into what we think is more granular, like gut health, no, that's still not what people are looking for. We're trying to solve a specific problem for a specific kind of person. So when I teach coaches how to coach, we also end up talking about what their business is going to look like, what their practice is going to look like, what kind of people they're going to work with, and what problems they're going to become the expert in solving. I do think we have to do that. So this is the tools, right? I think that, and I think you touched on this, Dr. Jade, it's like, I would encourage a coach to create some kind of curriculum or point of view or proprietary process. This lives as a curriculum, let's call it. But the entirety of the coaching relationship is client-led, period. You are not the teacher standing at the pulpit, lecturing the crew. You're not the boss delegating tasks. You are a partner beside your client, but you are working them through some kind of process. I think that is important. I do think that health coaches have to dial into a point of view.
It's time for one of our sponsors, and this sponsor is a very exciting one and a new one. Timeline Nutrition and their supplement MitoPure. Now, if I was going to ask you what is the most important aspect of metabolism, the mitochondria would have to be tops on your list. The mitochondria are the little energy producing factories inside every single one of your cells. They take the end products of the food we eat, they break them down into cellular ATP and provide energy for the entire metabolism. And these mitochondria, if they are healthy and acting appropriately, can keep us looking good, feeling good, living longer, and functioning better. However, when they are not at optimal function, when they are burning energy in a dirty fashion, when they are damaged, they actually speed cellular aging. They speed up the aging process. We end up suffering from things like fatigue. We end up having all manner of dysfunctions, including weight loss resistance and other issues around weight loss. The mitochondria are the most important elements for the metabolism to function optimally, lose weight, age appropriately, etc. In this compound, MitoPure, that Timeline Nutrition has developed, there is a product called urolithin A. Now, urolithin A is an interesting compound because it is a postbiotic. Now, what does that mean? A postbiotic is a compound that is made from the bacteria in the gut. And so when you eat things like pomegranates, strawberries, walnuts, things with polyphenols like this, they go into the digestive tract, your gut bacteria start working on them, and they can create compounds. Urolithin A is one compound that is in the MitoPure product. It naturally occurs in nature from this bacteria in our gut that break down the polyphenols from primarily foods like pomegranates, strawberries, etc. And it can increase mitophagy in mitochondria. So you might say, well, Jade, what is mitophagy? Mitophagy is the ability for mitochondria to repair and regenerate and recycle their proteins and to stay healthy and functional and de-age. When we can stimulate mitophagy, we can keep our mitochondria functioning efficiently. We can decrease aging. We can increase energy. We can improve our ability to lose weight, function optimally, and stave off diseases of aging. This is what Timeline Nutrition has done with their MitoPure product and the urolithin A that is in it. This is a very exciting area of research. We have not had the ability to support the mitochondria in the way that we do now with this particular product. You definitely are going to want to check this out. I've been taking the product for several months now. It is one of these products that I really, really strongly recommend. To get the product MitoPure, all you have to do is go to timelinenutrition.com/next level. timelinenutrition.com/next level. And let's get back to the show.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree. And I oftentimes I don't know if this is a good analogy, but I'll just sort of throw it out because, when I think of the word coaching, right, I think of someone like, I don't know, let's take, a very popular athlete, the cliche one. Let's take Michael Jordan, right, he's playing basketball and has a particular style in which he plays and particular attributes. Speed, maybe, burst off the line, flexibility, etc. And ultimately, a coach's job is not to say, I want you to shoot the ball this way, or I want you to dribble the ball this way. It's basically looking at those particular attributes of this particular person and how they show up in the game and the attributes they bring to the game, and spot the little areas that are their blocking points, right? And again, I'm phrasing this as a statement, but it's really a question to the experts, and I just want to see if they agree or not, and then all of you listening, just hear it as a statement. I tend to do this sometimes, but this is a question. So then you're finding the one little dribble or the one little delay that you, having the objective view, can see that Michael Jordan cannot see. And then you essentially just pepper in right there. That's a potential repeated pattern, stuck emotion, recurrent obstacle that you seem to have a delay or a glitch or a problem working around. And the coach's objective view spots these things in the athlete, or in this case, their particular client, and begins to help them figure a way around that obstacle. Doesn't give them the way around that obstacle because the coach doesn't actually know, but helps them become aware of that obstacle. And then the coach and them together begin to work a plan to get around that obstacle. And there's learning that happens in there. And the coach is also picking up those lessons and making sure that the client will get them. And then the process continues. And so this is a way that I oftentimes think about coaching. I don't see it done this way. I'm wanting to know, is this how you all see it as well? And what am I missing in this particular process and in this analogy?
I really like your analogy. The reason I like your analogy is because let's just go with this Michael Jordan analogy, right? So we are talking about a coach who is an expert in basketball, but not an expert in Michael Jordan per se. Michael Jordan is the expert in Michael Jordan. This coach is the expert in basketball. Well, so is Michael Jordan, but this is the coming together of experts. This is the coach and the client are both experts. So the coach is the expert in whatever their point of view is going to be. And Dr. Jade, a nod to you because I consider myself to be a coach who's an expert in metabolism, right? Whatever. But my clients are the experts in their specific lives, their structural supports, their environment, their schedule, their likes and dislikes, what have you. So I roll in with my expertise. I meet them with their expertise. For example, I just onboarded a client who's a surgeon, and she's in operating rooms for, 6 to 10 hours a day, plus on call. She can't leave to go heat up her lunch. Do you know what I mean? So she comes to the relationship with the expertise of her specific schedule, and I have to take my expertise and we have to work it together. And one thing that you brought up, Dr. Jade, is this idea of obstacles, barriers. To me, that's our biggest opportunity as coaches, because the client comes to the session and, some things are working, but ultimately some things aren't. And what's not working is, I think, what we zero in on. Okay, tell me what's not working and why you think that's not working. And then we kind of put our heads together and we're co-creating solutions. When you co-create a solution, when you both agree that you're experts co-creating solution, what you get to over time is the ultimate outcome of a health coaching relationship, which is self-efficacy. And self-efficacy is this knowledge, belief, understanding. I have the skills, resources, and tools and supports to do this on my own eventually. So graduation is the ultimate goal of a really well-structured coaching relationship. That doesn't happen if I'm the boss telling you what to do. Because as soon as I'm out of the picture, you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
We have to co-create this change together.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say before you jump in here, Laura, what's really interesting, if you're trying to be like, hey, I'm gonna constantly be directive as a coach, you're not learning the lessons. Like one of the things that I think is the master coaches are masters at spotting patterns. And if they're convinced they already know the patterns and they're only coaching in one way, they never learn any new patterns that they can then apply to other clients. And so it's a really interesting sort of dynamic that you're talking about here. Great coaches who coach in this particular way that it seems like you all are training people also get better and better coaches. I was just watching something with Joe Rogan. He was talking about Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belts. And they were saying that, there's a huge difference, like one black belt versus another black belt. There's a huge gap in expertise in those two black belts. And the black belts who are the real masters have spotted the patterns and learned from the patterns and are continually learning from the patterns versus getting stuck in a particular pattern. So yeah, I don't know if that's but I would love to hear your thoughts on that, Laura.
I completely agree on both points of view, your analogy and kind of the way Erin really fleshed that out. I also kind of this comes up for me a lot where I can see a pattern or I can hear repeat statements from people over and over again, these sort of self-depreciating statements about why they sort of use it as a way to, I think, deflect emotion, where they joke about themselves. And I do this all the time with technology, but when somebody has been trying to repeatedly lose weight or lower their blood sugar or what have you repeatedly for decades and are unsuccessful, after a while you get defeated and you begin to use these phrases and terms as a way to kind of deflect how you feel about it. But they're still repeating the same patterns and helping them sort of see that. I kind of, one way I explained this to somebody who had, by the way, been dieting her entire life. She's been, I don't know how many different gyms, and she was wondering kind of what makes me different, what makes coaching different. And I don't really get it. I've had coaches before. I don't understand what, and what I try to explain is look, at the end of the day, you're the one who's sort of driving the bus. You're driving the car. If I do all the driving, you will never learn how to drive. You'll never even learn how to get anywhere because you're not paying attention to all the little twists and turns and the things you need to reach out to reach your destination because you've never had to pay attention before because somebody else was always doing it for you. And by the way, there's more than one route, most cases, to get to a destination. One might be more direct and faster, but there's more traffic. There may be more pedestrians, more left turns if you hate them, or whatever the case may be. The longer road might take you longer, but it's a prettier drive. It's more comfortable, whatever the case may be. So you're the one that decides on the destination. You're the one that decides just which path makes sense for you based on where you are right now. It's my job to be shotgun when you're trying to change lanes and there's a car there. Right? It's my job as the navigator to be like, hey, we're going to have to get off in about a mile or two. It's kind of crowded around here. Maybe you want to get over now. Right? So it's my job to kind of help act as that navigator for you, that shotgun to help you foresee obstacles, AKA call out some of these things that we know happen every single time you go on vacation. Let's talk about how you're going to navigate this. But at the end of the day, my client's doing the driving because if I do all the driving, they're never going to learn how.
Yeah, 100%. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing I'll say here is that, when people come to me and they say, I don't really get coaching, and I'm like, oh, trust me, you have coaches. Everybody has coaches. It's just that most of the ones you have are pretty shitty. They actually don't know what they're doing. And they're like, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, we humans have coaches. We have people who inspire us. We have people who teach us through just watching them. Our friends are our coaches normally. Now, on social media acts as a coach. We all have coaches and influences. It's just that most of them don't know how to do this. Our friends that we go to, the ones that we go, oh, you're doing what? Let me try that, or trying to get advice from. These are our coaches. We all have them, and every human needs them. It's just that they are shitty coaches 90% of the time. And so, from my perspective, if you want to be successful in life, like I've had some success. I was talking to, Laura and Erin before we came on, and I'm going through a really tough business time now, but I've had some success in business. There's no way I could have gotten here without the coaches. I had, very early on, I had coaches in health and fitness. I've had coaches in metabolism. I've had coaches in relationships and romance. I've had coaches constantly. And to me, one thing you'll find is the people who are most successful, they have coaches. They take their coaches seriously. I think at one time I had 3 different coaches in 3 different areas of my life. In romantic, because I was like, I'm going through patterns here that I'm seeing that I need to fix. In sort of finance, and then sort of this big writing coach, because I'm want to become when I was trying to become an author, et cetera. And so from my perspective, we need to have coaches. They just need to be the right ones. And I don't think people realize this. They have coaches anyway. They're just not very good. And I'm wondering what you all think of that. Are you of the same mind that everyone needs a coach and that you're being coached regardless, from my perspective?
Well, that speaks to how coachable you are. And I when I think about people who are coachable and open to receiving coaching, I'm trying to think of what are the characteristics of this person. So, and we can brainstorm on what's the characteristics of a coachable person. The reason why I think that's an interesting place to start is because once you've harnessed the power of good coaching, once you've received good coaching, you become just like, your visual acuity for good coaching opportunities and coaching opportunities for yourself become so clear. For example, I have a business coach right now that I paid a lot of money for. And inside his organization is somebody who's really a good business strategist. And she doesn't take on individual clients, but I think she should be my coach. So I asked her if she'd coach me on that business strategy piece that I'm not quite getting. And she was taken by surprise because she says, well, I don't do this. I work for him. I'm not a coach. I said, but you have a specific skill that I don't have. And the way you coached me on that last call was exactly what I needed. I will pay you money because I want this skill. I don't have it in my toolkit. I won't learn it myself. I know that because I've received good coaching, and I know that the only way to level up is to seek out specific expertise. And I think that's the piece of being a coachable person. Now, I don't necessarily know that all health consumers are coachable. And this is I'm not getting into the weeds of this, but that's because the diet, fitness, exercise, and wellness industry has basically lobotomized them from feeling any degree of self-confidence or self-awareness. But, kind of to your point, is there bad coaching? Is there good coaching? Yeah, I think most of what people think coaching is in the health and wellness industry, because we're talking about health coaching here, right? Health coaching, which is different than life coaching, kind of the realm that you're getting into, Dr. Jade, which maybe we can talk about the differences there. But in the realm of health coaching, what we're up against is that health consumers have never been encouraged to be an equal partner in the relationship. They've been really, really kind of ground down, kind of beat down by the whole industry, unfortunately. That's my point of view.
Yeah, and actually, I can give us the evidence base on this because it's something I know. Openness, the personality traits are not very well researched, but the big 6 used to be the big 5. Now it's the big 6. Very much are. And in other words, so there are big 6 personality traits that have a whole evidence base, and the one that makes people most coachable is openness. And interestingly enough, I score the highest on openness. That's where, that's why perhaps to Erin's point, I hadn't thought about myself that way, that I am coachable and look for coaches sort of in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How about you, Laura? How do you see it?
No, I mean, I agree that there are good coaches and bad coaches, just like there's good trainers and bad trainers and good doctors and bad doctors. And there's people that are on opposite ends of the spectrum in any profession. So there is that risk there. And we see many people afraid to hire a business coach for that reason. Am I going to spend all this money and still not get anywhere? But, look, I mean, from someone in the health realm that's been to, just my own health experience, literally dozens of doctors, none of whom solved my problem until I found the one that did. That happens. And then you stick with that person and you begin to recognize the qualities in that kind of person to kind of help you identify whether somebody is going to be a good fit for you, or a good coach for you in that respect. But look, I think when it comes to the end health consumer, they've been programmed. We have all been programmed to abdicate our health to experts. That somehow health is this super complicated thing that only health experts can help us achieve, when in reality, it is actually very simple, but our current environment doesn't necessarily make it easy. You know, if I'm really kind of able to break things down to simple concepts, like just eat real whole food, ideally what's local to you and in season. It's a very simple concept, but it's not easy to do when there's a 7-Eleven on every corner. And big gulps and just the food that's quote unquote tasty has literally been not grown, but manufactured to be the most craveable is a positive thing somehow. That a food that actually has you craving eating more of it is somehow a positive thing in a food, right? And then we wonder why we can't lose weight, or did we put ourselves down because I want the Oreos. Why are the Oreos even in the house, right? And again, that's not a moral failing. I never really thought about it that way. The Oreos are in the house because my kids like Oreos. I just can't say no for some reason. And then they beat themselves up that they can't say no. And now we have to unwind things and go back to, again, why are the Oreos in the house?
Yeah. I think
kids don't need them either.
Yeah, I actually interesting. I think, talking about what makes a good coach, as you were saying, that made me think, the best coaches spot the pattern within the pattern. In other words, they go, well, there's a pattern. Oreos is a pattern. This craving, these foods in the house is a pattern. What's the pattern behind that? Right. And there are some big ones. This is where, some of the psychology stuff comes in, but pleasure is a really big one. When you don't have purpose and a why, and, you will distract yourself with pleasure. You will seek popularity. We can talk about it as dopamine hits. We have all kinds of ways we're trying to get our safety, security, acceptance, belonging, freedom, autonomy needs met. And food and entertainment, which also go hand in hand, are big ones. But I think a good coach basically goes, it's really interesting, right? I think a good coach goes, yeah, I see all that stuff, and I can certainly get into the weeds and talk about what the industry is doing and this and that. But there's a story and a pattern behind that pattern that makes you susceptible to that. This is the Michael Jordan dribbling, sort of going one way, and you go, oh, there it is. What is that? And then you're going to go backwards and spot that story, which to me, there's always an unconscious story. And by the way, I think that might be perhaps the difference between life coaching and health coaching. And what Erin was referring to is, I guess I'll just let this out of the bag now. One of the things we were talking about before the three of us came online is I'm probably going to be moving pretty strongly into the direction of my own next level human coaching certification, which, really is going to probably be somewhere between health coaching and life coaching. But when I think about this, I oftentimes think about not necessarily what, the health behaviors are, but what are the patterns and ways of thinking behind the scene that are driving those behaviors. And then I'm looking for the way you're dribbling those stories around how you relate to people, trauma, adverse child events, like all of these things. And obviously I have you two on because I think you're the best at health coaching. And I obviously think people should go and get certified through you all. But we do have to unpack what makes you all different. And I'm wondering if that's, I'm sure you spend a lot of time training people to spot those patterns within the patterns. What's going on, everybody? Jumping into the show really quick. It's time to cover a sponsor. And this is a new sponsor that I'm pretty excited about. Let me give you a little background on this. You may not know this about me, but back when I was in medical school, at naturopathic medical school, I actually was a consultant for one of the leading spas and skin therapy spas in Seattle, Washington. And one of my jobs there is that I was looking at research on all the things that were really good for skin. And back then, this was in the mid to late 90s, there was kind of not really much going on with skincare. And this was the beginning of some of the skin lines actually coming out and putting botanicals and antioxidants and all of these kinds of things in their products. And so these were like topical supplements that people were actually putting in to their skincare lines and putting on the skin. And one of my jobs was to really look at that research. Well, we've come a long way since then. The only issue is that most of these companies that are really doing a good job on this stuff are mostly for women. You don't see a lot of male lines for skincare. The other thing about skincare that really kind of drives me nuts is you get these two types, right? You get these sort of skincare products that are for the masses that really have just a ton of icky stuff in them, compounds that you really do not want to be putting on your skin. And that's one, side of the equation. And the other side of the equation is these companies that are essentially putting nothing but natural agents on your skin, things like coconut oil and harsh clays and this kind of stuff that even though they're natural, they can be pretty occlusive for the skin and, cause some issues for the skin. And so this is why I'm excited about this particular sponsor. This sponsor is called Caldera Labs. They specialize in male skincare. And in my opinion, they get this right. They take the best of the natural compounds with the best of current science, and none of the toxic stuff goes in their particular products. And they are combining these products for men in particular. The other thing I love about Caldera Labs is they are actually doing their own testing. And so one of the studies that they have done that has been released is they took 50 some men, all between the ages of 35 and 65, and basically had them go through their major product line daily using their cleanser, their base layer moisturizer, and then their serum at night. And after 8 weeks, they looked at subjectively what the men thought of their skin. But they also used analyzing technology to analyze acne, wrinkles, color discoloration on the skin, etc. And what they found was an 89% improvement in radiance and luminosity in male skin, 87% improvement in fine lines and wrinkles, and more even skin tone in 85%. Now, in terms of the men actually liking what they saw, 96% reported that they felt their skin looked healthy, 91% said their skin was less dry, and 91% said they had smoother skin. Now, one of the things about this is not only is Caldera Labs using the best of natural agents and modern science, they are actually testing their stuff. So from my perspective, this is what we want. I have started using these products. I'm about 2 or 3 weeks in right now. I'm really liking what I am seeing. And this is why I have partnered with Caldera Labs for you men to have a good line of skincare. I laugh about this. A lot of my girlfriends and friends laugh about this, but I love facials. I love skincare. I love anything that has to do with, reducing the appearance of aging. I don't know, call me a little vain, but I think Caldera Labs is getting this right. And they have a special code for you for listeners of my podcast. You can go to calderalab.com, get 20% off their best products. Use the code Jade, or you can go to calderalab.com/Jade. And if you're asking me, hey, Jade, what should I get? Well, what I'm using right now is I'm using their base cleanser. That's the Clean Slate, the base moisturizer. And I use those in the morning. And then at night, I use the Clean Slate again. And then I use the serum, the good. I have pretty oily skin, so I use a couple drops of that. And one of the things I really like is they have this product called the Icon, which, let's face it, as we age, puffy eyes, bags under the eyes, those kinds of things. And so I'm really keen on this Icon. I've been using this in the morning and the night under my eyes for fine line, dark circles, and puffiness under the eyes. Go over to calderalab.com/Jade. Check out what they have to offer. Use the code Jade on checkout for 20% off. And definitely let me know what you think. And thank you so much to Caldera Lab for getting into the male skin care space. We've been needing you, and I'm happy you're here. Let's get back to the show.
I think I was thinking about this as we were talking earlier, like going kind of back to the beginning where we were sharing this 85% statistic. And we kind of got into this conversation around the legitimacy of health coaching and the legitimacy of the coaching industry. And I think that's just kind of the angle I want to tackle this from in terms of what we're teaching people or how we're teaching people to become truly coaches, like truly. And I was thinking when we had that conversation at the start of this episode, I jotted down in my notes, I feel really legitimate. Like as a health coach, I feel 100% legitimate. Every day that I wake up and I do my health coaching gig, I feel legit. I am making impact in people's lives. I'm making lifelong impact in their lives. And I feel that, and I'm 100% confident in that. So I was thinking through like what has not contributed to that legitimate feeling versus what has contributed to it. So why do I feel legitimate? Well, I can tell you it's not because I know everything about human biochemistry. I don't. I could go and take 100 more, evidence-based science, metabolism, nutrition, fitness courses. I could take 100 more courses and learn more about the science of the human body and the ever-changing, sort of paradigms there. That doesn't lend to my legitimacy, my feeling of actual solid confidence that I have a business making an impact and an income by the way. And I've been health coaching since 2011, so I've stood the test of time, and I'm making an income, and I never didn't, right? But this legitimacy thing, what does make me feel legitimate is that I know how to truly listen with pure curiosity and non-judgment. I'm not coming in again with this boss energy. I'm coming in with almost the subordinate energy. Like I need to understand. I'm curious to understand. I'm literally curious. I know how to be at the same level as my clients, and I insist upon it. And my clients will even tell anybody that Erin just comes in with us and is with us. And I've taught myself to thrive on getting into the weeds of my clients on these little things that they don't think are important, but that where we're uncovering their patterns that they were blind to for so long. So it's sort of like, I believe that health coaching in general is a physical embodiment practice, just like playing the violin or perfecting your golf stroke. You have to get in and embody it. And once you do, you will feel legitimacy, and you will know you can help people, and you'll be amazed at what you can spot in terms of pattern recognition, in terms of the way people talk about themselves, how they value or devalue themselves. I'll go back to this 100 times. You'll be amazed at how little you talk about food or fitness with people once you really get into the skill set of being with them in that relationship.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things I've just, how well is all this working for people anyway? All this obsession over food and exercise. How well is it working? It's not. So what's really beautiful, this is the thing that makes you two different. That's the holism. That's the individualism, because there's a pattern behind the pattern. There's a pattern behind the obsession over exercise. There's a pattern behind the need to control your diet. These are the things that, the Primal Health Coach Institute is helping teach people to spot. So it sounds like your coaches become experts in pattern recognition and experts in helping people become aware of that, and then experts in helping them make their own choices as to what things are going to clear the path to get better.
Exactly.
100%. I mean, Erin, so Master Coach is that deep dive, that like advanced coaching curriculum that really should be married with the primary course. Our primary course doesn't have this required live component. We offer it multiple times a month. There's live webinars multiple times a month. Just not every, but if we required everybody show up live for a class, the number of people that could get a certification is reduced. But I do fundamentally believe that to really build confidence and be that kind of coach we're talking about, you're going to need both. So like the Master Coach course and how Erin delivers it is such a big difference from other national board certified health and wellness programs. There's an entity out there, the National Board for Health and Wellness Coaching, that has become sort of a national credential that people that are serious about looking for a health coaching program will use that as a litmus test. Hey, is this school approved at the national board? We are one of those schools. And really what you need is both programs. And I do believe that is what drives this sense of expertise, because I do think people go into market as a health coach do need to have some level of confidence in their health knowledge. Okay. You don't need to have a PhD in biochemistry. You don't, God forbid, think you need to be able to diagnose an illness for people. People were not doctors, right? But you do need to have a basic understanding of human metabolism, human immune system function, a basic understanding of the circadian, like you just kind of have to understand how the body works. And we teach this through this, what we call an ancestral health model. I've heard you refer to this a lot. You know, what is the mismatch between the environment humans have thrived in for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years and the environment we're in today? There are many enormous differences. And so we lead with, here's how the body works. Here's the biology and so that they have confidence. But most importantly, not so they can just dump all this on a client to prove how much they know. It's that based on the coaching conversation, when a coach is able to identify this pattern, hey, you know what? Would it be helpful if I help explain what's going on here? And you're able to deliver a piece of information, a piece of education at the right time, at the right level, based on where they are, that allows the light bulb to go off. That's like, oh my gosh, now that makes sense. And then you can, again, as Erin said, work together to determine how you work around changing that input for someone to make all the difference in the world. So kind of to answer your question about what makes us different is we actually teach science and nutrition science so that a coach can go to market with some level of confidence that they have an understanding of how the body works. We're bringing in this sort of ancestral sort of overlay, this lens that we kind of view this through. Why does the body work that way? Now, how can we take that biology and layer the psychology? Right? From a psychological point of view, how is my client going to use this information right now? Or is he or she just going to beat themselves up because they feel they lack the willpower to stop drinking Diet Coke? Right? Is a piece of information even helpful here? Right? Or do we need to go down another way? And one of the things that you'll learn a lot is this idea of asking permission to educate, asking permission to like provide a solution for somebody or an option. Right? Because it keeps the client in the driver's seat. You learn this. And the other thing that we teach that really differentiates us, that's missing in so many, Erin and I know this because we started back in the day, very few programs that are like, all right, now how do I provide a solution that someone will pay for? Because now I have a business. If you can't provide a solution, no one's going to pay you for it. Right? And if the solution you think you have, no one's willing to pay for it, now you just have a hobby. You don't have a business.
Yeah.
So we have that layered in here. So how can you bring your passion, your knowledge, your training, your past experience so that you can provide something of value that you feel legitimate about? Something Erin just mentioned, right? You don't have to be all things to all people. That's the fastest way to get you absolutely nowhere fast. Go to market with something you feel legitimate about, that you know what it's like to kind of sit in that experience. And you, because of your past experience, might be able to unfold some better questions and see the patterns, right? You don't have to be an expert in everything to get started.
Yeah, it's funny. Before we came on, Erin asked me what I thought were the issues in this industry, and I said the two things that you two have addressed. One being, I don't think the training of coaches is that good. So most people finish and they go, I don't really feel like I know, and I think that has to do with this idea of spotting patterns and teaching people that stuff as most important. And the other thing is that then they don't have a business, and you all are dealing with that as well. And one thing I'll say about this primal framework, and then we can start wrapping it up. I also think this is one of the things that I think is critical, and this is just for all of us to learn, and maybe you two can respond, and then we'll wrap things up. But to me, that's the power of that. And one of the reasons I love Mark Sisson and have always liked his work is that I think that ultimately what we do need and what we require, if you're going to train a coach, we need frameworks that guide the process, but are not so rigid that they get in the way of the individual. And I honestly think that the primal framework is one of these things. It's structured enough to allow a coach to go, okay, I know where I'm operating, but it's also broad enough to allow the individual full freedom within it. And what I would say to everyone listening, and what I would, kind of say to Erin and Laura as well, is that I think that ultimately, if you're looking for a coaching situation, and as I build out and start thinking about next level human coaching, that's the way I think about it. I go, what is the framework by which I can train people that also has broad, near infinite flexibility to deal with the individuals? And that seems like what
what you have done with Primal Health Coach Institute.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great point. I mean, the baseline, biochemical genetic human experience is what it is. It's sort of, you can't really argue with it in a lot of ways. Of course, we have the biochemical uniqueness and people's unique lives, but teaching an ancestral health and nutrition strategies is a really, really solid foundation. And it's still client-led. So an example that I'll offer is, one of the tenets of primal and paleo is this grain elimination, eliminating a whole food group, no grains, right? So, you get your zealous primal health coach in there who's going to eliminate grains, pow, 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 just shooting the grain elimination pistols as much as they can. But what I've learned over the years is that I don't get to decide if my clients are eliminating grains, they do. And most of my clients don't start there. That's not where we're starting. It's kind of going back to Laura's Oreo metaphor. It's like, okay, you're binging on Oreos. Let's talk about that. Like, before we get to grain elimination or gut healing or microbiome or whatever we're going to do, it's like, let's talk about this, the thing that's going to move some dials for you, get you some quick wins, feeling better, feeling like you have some control, and so self-determination. Another aspect of the coaching knowledge that we train coaches on. It's not about prescribing or being dogmatic. I try my best to dial back the dogma of our primal health coaches as much as I can. I really double down on it. I mean, there's entire exercises in our master coach course that is like, you need to confront your biases, because that's not how we lead a coaching conversation. That's not how we facilitate change in people. It's so hard for folks to do, but we insist on it. And I think because we've been in the industry for so long, Laura, as the admissions director, encounters people on the phone who have done 3, 4, 6, a dozen other certifications and didn't get what they needed. And they're kind of cert hopping at this point, trying to find the one thing that's going to get them this feeling of legitimacy, the confidence and clarity. And we have always said, learning how to coach will get you there. So double down on that before you spend money on another cert or a fancy coach, business coach. Do you know how to coach people and how to encourage change from within a person? That's where the money is, folks. That's what you need to learn.
Yeah, and one thing I'll share with everyone right now too, with the next level human coaching, if I do that, which it looks like I will. It looks like, from my perspective, I'm actually going to move into a position where I'm going to force people to have a certification from someone like your organization. In other words, I don't want to be the person who, to me, I think you need, a bachelor's level, a master's level, and so to me, I'm probably going to come in up above, which would be a nice sort of synergy actually between our organizations, in terms of me sending people to you who are brand new in the industry, and then perhaps if you guys don't have that, someone sending people to me to get sort of a broader education. But I do think it's really interesting, because I think this is a process. If you're going to be a coach, you have to be a lifelong coach. And what else you have for us, Laura, to wrap us up? I'm curious what your final thoughts are.
The people that I speak to every day. So part of my job as admissions director is to educate people on what health coaching is, and educate people on what the Primal Health Coach Institute is. But I can tell in any conversation who I think is going to be a great coach. I would never, ever tell someone not to pursue it, but there are some people that I think just need some additional work to kind of be ready, because otherwise you're stuck in that pattern like Erin was talking about, where you just keep collecting certs. You have plenty of knowledge. Don't enroll here because you think you need to understand, what ketosis is, right? I mean, could that be a helpful piece of information? Yeah. You want to come here because you want to know how to have a better conversation. And you want to go into coaching because you want to help people change. That language, unfortunately, from a branding or business point of view, doesn't always land. What you need to be able to do is speak the language of what that change is going to help them accomplish. We can help you do that. So this is a growing field. One of the things I wanted to talk about real quick before we left was just, not only is it a growing field, again, with more and more people that aren't doing anything, but more and more people that are doing a lot now. It's growing dramatically. Entrepreneurship is not the only path. You'll be paid the most, If you stick with it and you get this right, the income potential is much higher down that entrepreneurial path. However, I see people going out and landing jobs every day, full-time jobs all the time. And people ask me, what is the average health coach make? It's not really a thing. Like, average is not really a good way to view this, but if I had to put a number on it, somewhere between around 60 grand, I think, is what a full-time health coach is making, particularly if you're working for someone else. 50 to 65, but 60-ish. And so the cost of the credential, like if you buy our board certification path, both programs, it's less than $5,000.
Yeah.
Less than $5,000. And you can land a full-time job as a National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach making 50 or 60 grand. Guess how much a degree in dietetics costs? 80 to 100 grand? And guess what the average dietitian coming out of school earning a full-time is about 60 grand.
Yeah.
So the return on investment on this is enormous. And it's a better deal just in terms of that goes. But from an entrepreneurial point of view, boy, does it really skyrocket. Right? But what do you want to do? If you want to write macros and give meal plans and put someone on a diet, then go be a nutritionist or a dietitian. That's kind of what you want to do. But if you want to actually teach people how to drive, how to reach their destination. And by the way, when their destination changes because life happened, they know how to get back behind the wheel and get where they want to go. What a phenomenal gift is that? But you're only going to get that if you learn how to coach. And these days you can learn how to coach at a much lower price and make the same or more money than some of the traditional degrees that we're seeing in this space.
Yeah, Laura, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's one thing that I'm so glad we didn't miss that, because this is an industry, when it's done right, you can get this kind of an education for $5,000. That's unheard of, basically. Yep. It is absolutely unheard of. And yeah, I know, I'll share something with you, and I know you two know this, and I share this with the listeners, but guess what I do, right? So like, what I do, yes, I'm a naturopathic doctor. Yes, I'm working on my PhD in psychology. Yes, and people might go, oh my God, like, you have all this knowledge. I'm like, all I am is a coach. In other words, I didn't need all that education, actually. Most of my education was not required, because I was in the clinic for a very long time, but there's a reason that I moved out of the clinic and do mostly coaching, and then built with Metabolic, built a whole, coaching program, and all the stuff that I have done. It's mostly coaching. Partly because the upside of coaching is absolutely fantastic. And I'll just come back to the AI thing, because I think it's important. What is required, and the people who are going to make it, are the people who know how to listen, the people who know how to spot patterns, and the people who know how to meet the individual and allow that individual to have, their own path forward. And that's what you all are coaching people on and teaching people. And that is obviously why I have you on. And so I'm so grateful for your work. I mean, I love that the three of us become close friends over the years. Erin, I just adore you and what you do. Laura, I love what you do. Thank you so much to Mark as well. Mark Sisson for, the Primal Health Coaching Institute. Why don't you tell everyone, as we wrap up, where can they get more information on getting certified through you all? And just so you know, you need to be following both of my friends here, because they give a wealth of knowledge on their social media. So tell everyone where to kind of get involved with Primal Health Coaching Institute, and also where to find you two.
Yeah. The best place to find us, I think, is on our website. There's a ton of information on there, including a lot of just free education. It's just primalhealthcoach.com. I really think that's the best place. But we have an active Instagram page, Primal Health Coach. We're on Facebook. We have, we're growing our YouTube account as well. We have some curated playlists around our Coaches Corner webinars and some of our other educational pieces. So we have a channel on YouTube, but primalhealthcoach.com is the absolute best place to find out and really take a look at everything we offer. I'm just on Instagram. I'm just coachlaura.fit, or Laura Rupsis on Facebook. I know Erin's got a much better Instagram feed than I do. So lay it on him, Erin.
Well, I definitely waste a lot more time on there than you do. So you can find me at Eat Simple Erin on Instagram. And I'm over on the Primal Health Coach Instagram too, sometimes just spitting some rhymes about how to be a better coach. So you can get lots of free content from us. And, Laura's the gal to chat with if you want to explore what your health coaching education could look like.
I'm very excited for all of you listening to get to listen to this conversation with Erin and Laura. And thanks so much for hanging out on the podcast. Laura, Erin, hang on just before you hang up. I'm just going to shut off and then we'll wrap things up. Just want to make sure this uploads. But thank you, everybody, and we'll see you at the next show.
You have been listening to the Next Level Human podcast with Dr. Jade, Teta. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe and consider leaving a review. You make the biggest difference when you pass on your lessons and inspire others. That's why reviews like this are so powerful. Your words may be the only ones that resonate for someone else. Please remember the information in this podcast is for educational purposes only. Always consult your personal physician or therapist before making any lifestyle changes. And finally, thank you for who you are in the world and the difference you make.